Good day, everybody. Are you ready for a really fun lesson in multiples and factors? Let's go. So today what we're going to do is our essential question of what are factors and multiples? By the end of the lesson, we've got a few goals, and our goals are that we should be able to find factors of a number, find multiples of a number, and be able to define the difference between factors and multiples. You ready to get into it? Let's go. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with multiples. Now, multiples are really just the numbers that we land on when we're skip counting. So for example, if I were to start with 3 and I said the multiples of 3, we're just going to start skip counting. So 3, 6,
9, 12, 15, 18,
21, and so forth. Multiples go on and on forever because we can always skip count for an infinite number of times. There are an infinite set of multiples. To find multiples, really what we're doing is we're taking that target number. So if your teacher says, find the multiples of 8, you're taking your target number of 8 and you're multiplying it by each one of the counting numbers in order. So we always start with 1. So if I go back to my example of 3 and I say, okay, well, 3 times 1, that's 3. So the 3, or your target number itself, is the first multiple. Then the second would be 3 times 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. The third would be 3 times 3 is 9. Fourth would be 3 times 4 is 12. And then the fifth would be 3 times 5 is 15. And again, it just goes on and on and on because multiples are infinite. All right, let's start talking about factors. Now with factors, it's a little bit different, but it's still using multiplication, just in a different way. Factors are the numbers that we use to make up another number using multiplication. So for example, let's use 6. Now, I know that one multiplication problem to make 6 is 3 times 2 equals 6. So the factors, 2 factors of 6 are 3 and 2. I find it easier to use a table or a rainbow to organize my thoughts. So I'm going to show you that in 2 different ways. And then when we do our examples, I'm going to use a table just because it doesn't take as long to do. You can use whichever method you'd like when you're doing your examples. So the first one is a table, and the way that I'm going to set this up is I'm going to start by putting my target number at the top, and we're going to stick with that 6. Now, I have to think in my head, okay, what numbers multiply together to make 6? So I always start with number 1, so I'm going to put 1 underneath it, and I say, okay, well, what times 1 equals 6? And I know from the identity property that 1 times any number is itself. So 1 times 6 is 6. So 1 and 6 are factors. Then I'm going to check my next one. So my next number in counting order is 2. And does 2 times anything make 6? Yes. 2 times 3 makes 6. Now you could stop here because there's no number in between 2 and 3. And when we list factors, we don't list them more than once. But just to make sure, I would go down. Okay, does 3 have any other numbers? Yeah, well, 3 times 2 makes 6. How about 4? How about 5? How about 6? Well, 6 times 1 equals 6. So our factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. Now the next way that I can do is using the rainbow method. The rainbow method is really pretty, but it's not very practical. But if it works for you, great, it works for you. So I'm going to show you how to do that one. This time we're going to use the target number of 12. So I'm going to use on my ends or my clouds 1 and 12 because we always know that factors are 1 in itself. And then I'm going to connect it with a rainbow, and that's telling me that 1 times 12, so 1 and 12 are factors. Then I'm going to go to 2. Well, 2 and 6. So I'm going to connect it using multiplication, 2 and 6. Now I'm going to go to my next counting number. The next counting number is 3. And 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to connect it using multiplication. I know that I'm done because there's no numbers in between 3 and 4. Either one of these methods are great. You're just going to use which one works best for you. So let's summarize. In summary, or to summarize, basically, multiples are skip counting, and factors are what numbers do I use? What numbers do I use to make my target number using multiplication? We're good? Let's do some examples. On your notes, you've got the same examples that I have. So you can pause the video, try it out, and check your answers, or you can work them out with me. So here we go. Right now, we're going to look for both factors and multiples of 10. We're going to start with factors. I'm going to start by making my table and putting 10 at the top. Then I'm going to ask myself, okay, 1 times what is 10? And that's 10. Then I'm going to go to the next counting number, and the next counting number is 2. So 2 times 5 is the next set of factors. Then I'm going to ask myself, what about 3? No, 3 does not have any number that multiplies to get to 10. Then I'm going to ask myself, well, what about 4? No, 4 doesn't have a number that I can multiply to get to 10. So the rest of my table is blank because now I'm at 5, and 5 is already listed in my table. So I know that I'm done. So the factors are 1, 2, 5, and 10. I like to write them in numerical. Now, let's go with multiples. We're just going to skip count. So 10, 20,
30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,
100, and this goes on and on and on. Why? Because multiples are an infinite set of numbers. All right, now let's do 12. The numbers are going to get a little bit harder. So as we're doing it, we just need to kind of think to ourselves, what are some other strategies that I can use? So here we go. Start with factors. I'm going to make my table and put 12 at the top. I'm going to start with number 1 because I know that 1 times itself is my 2 factors. So 1 and 12. Then I'm going to go to 2. What times 2 equals 12? 6. Then I'm going to go to 3. What times 3 equals 12? 4. Now there's no number in between 3 and 4, so my table's done, and I just write them in numerical order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12. Easy enough. Let's go do multiples. Again, we're just going to skip count. 12, 24,
36, 48, 60, 72,
96, 108, and it just keeps going on and on. Let's say you don't know how to skip count by 12. So here's a little tip. You can just start with the number that you know 12, and add 12. So 12 plus 12 is 24. 24 plus 12 is 36. 36 plus 12 is 48. Use that strategy if you don't know how to skip count by larger numbers. You ready to try another one? Here we go. 15. Let's do our factor table. Put 15 at the top. Start with 1. We know 1 times 15. 2. Well, I know that 15 is an odd number, so there's no number times 2 that's going to make 15. So I skip 2 and move to 3. 3 times 5 is 15. There's no other numbers. 4 times anything doesn't make it, and now I'm back to 5. I know that my factors are 1, 3, 5, and 15. Multiples, it's the same thing. So I've got 15,
30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105,
120, and it goes on and on and on because multiples are an infinite set. Again, if you need some help, start with the number that you know or you can get to using multiplication or skip counting, and then just add those numbers or your product that you're looking for, add that number, and that way it'll help you try to figure out the next set of numbers. Last example. Try to do this one by yourself, and then we'll come back and then find the right answer. Pause the video right now. Welcome back, friends. Did you find the same answer? I hope you did. Don't forget, we've got some work to do on Seesaw, so make sure that you get that practice activity in. Hope you have a great day.